Are we here?
You think we're here?
Like, do we exist?
Everything's good? You don't sound very confident when you say that.
Borbo, is everything good? Borbo.
Oh, so you weren't good, but we were good.
Borbo, look,
Well, in that case...
It's a boomer. Get the boomer.
I don't think you're allowed to say that word.
Boomer?
Boomer?
She's not.
Uh-oh.
I can say boomer.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this Just Chatting stream, where we're going to be talking about something new that we tried on the last episode of Abomination Vaults.
Bye.
We made plot progress.
He went away.
That was new.
Do any of us exist? That's a good question, Link.
Welcome back.
At the very least, our players are
chat
apparently
bigger.
having a good time playing this game as a count of the fact that we wake up conscious every morning.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
do we?
Just think about that.
But
huh?
do you?
I think it's the definition of
What do
waking
you
up,
think
actually.
you are?
I definitely wake up.
You never
slow,
had
too,
a
and
dream that
fatigued.
not a lucid dream, but like one of those ones that you feel like you have woken up and go through the motions and like,
The closest I ever
and
have
you
on
wake up
that-
again and you're like, oh, what the hell?
Yes.
Like,
The closest I ever have on that is my recurring dream that pops up occasionally where I'm walking along a cliff, my foot slips off the edge of the cliff, I jerk it in real life and wake myself up.
you've never had the dream that's like, that's literally just like waking up and going about your morning. It's just like the dream of like waking up in the morning.
My dream tends to be...
And then you wake up again and you're like, you don't know what planet you're on.
Yeah, I haven't
Nothing
had that,
makes any
no.
sense.
I've had that several
Wake
times.
up in the Matrix, glitch
Mine
in the
usually
Matrix.
isn't
kind
like
of-
going through my morning. It's jumping through my day, and it's just the points I don't remember are the like nothing has
The
happened.
things, driving to work. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the flyovers. Yeah.
It's one of those delightful parts where it's like you get in your car and then
You're just at
you
work.
recall nothing and you're just at your destination. You're
Yes.
like, geez, I really hope I didn't run anyone off the road. Did I
You
pass?
know you got in the car, you know you got out of the car.
Yeah.
You have no recollection of anything between points A and B.
Link has a good point, actually. The only HP that matters is 1, so any number higher than that is a bonus.
Wow, that's actually true. I mean, that's
What
pretty
does
much
that have
how
to
I
do
live
with-
my life.
With this
I live my
esoteric
life.
dreaming.
Well, I don't know. Not at all, actually. but
No,
I-
Jen is right.
I live my life at a single hit point.
that's
yeah.
a good point, actually. She does.
With multiple conditions on her.
I am always one.
It's just doomed to 3 all the time.
No, that's Haley.
No, Haley is doomed.
Haley is doomed 3.
Yeah.
I'm doomed 1.
Yeah, if there was like
Don't get crit.
a god of health
don't.
somewhere. Yeah, basically, that's what we do.
It's Irory, I think.
I worry every time she interacts with a
No,
flight of
Irory.
stairs. Irory is
god?
the god is the god of healing,
That
or
joke is probably
like-
not going to be accessible to anyone that wasn't paying attention. But none of you guys are going to get that. You had to have just been. That had to be third partied. I thought it was good.
I got it.
Continue.
It was good. It was good. I can confirm good.
well,
Good-
I
good
I
game.
support your clever and great ideas.
Remind me why we're here, aside from the fact that I'm married to you.
Maps
Memes.
and
Oh, yeah.
Mostly
memes.
memes.
maps. The voice of dissent is here.
There's
I-
it.
Oh,
Awesome.
good.
Don't worry, I have your
He
paragraph
he has
of
your
notes.
manifesto.
Yeah, he's got your.
we will
your-
of course discuss
I will
it.
read
Your
it word
notes.
for word.
Maps or lack thereof. So, kind of to a little bit of background on this. So Pathfinder is a very crunchy game, very, very heavy mechanics game. And one of the big mechanics of it is, you want me to point the pipe while I'm
Yeah.
talking? All right, so one of the important mechanics of Pathfinder is, of course, the map. Where are you? Are you in flanking position? How big is that monster really? How many squares can you move with every stride action, etc., etc.
But really, what is 5 feet?
1 square.
Guys,
Yeah.
Just hope.
hold
There you
up.
go.
Hold them up.
That's the end of stream, everybody. Thanks. That's the only question I had.
That's
Foot.
one.
That's a foot. That's 1 foot. It's actually, it's not. It's like half a foot. You have very small.
I hate you.
But the fact is that it's part of the tactical war game aspect of Pathfinder, and just because though, thinking about it from the term of Abomination Vaults, I like trying to get rid of maps, and because the point of Abomination Vaults is you're exploring this vast underground mystery dungeon, and you lose some of the mystery if you can see where you're going. Right? If there's a map that's kind of like, I walk down this street, I turn left here, I go down these stairs. It's way better if it's kind of like you see a door, you go through the door, you go for a ways, right? And you don't know where you go, and then you encounter something, and there's more exactly fog of war. There's a lot more of a fog of war involved. Whereas on a map, you can put a fog of war on a map. It kind of helps, but generally people keep their orientation pretty well still. As someone who's both played in a fog of war situation, You generally kind of get a sense for the scale of the level just from how big the map is. You get a sense of where rooms are relative to each other. And so the thought of mystery of exploring on a map, I was really kind of against to begin with. I kind of only wanted to use the map for combat because I liked it. Yeah, no, and trying to play a game where squares and ranges matter on the tactical war game without a map is difficult. However, we did do that last time. I prepared for it because I thought we were actually going to be down to showrunner. However, AJ was very grateful, stepped in, covered, which was very nice. But without a showrunner, it is impossible to run a map fight. And so I made some preps. I threw some stuff together to see how a map fight would go without it, and it worked pretty smoothly. Effectively, what I kind of focused down on was what information matters that you see on the map. Which 5-foot square you occupy doesn't really matter. Really what matters is, can you hit the enemy? Are you flanking the enemy? Are you prone? Or are you stuck, right? Are you at a disadvantaged position? Those are basically the only 3 things that I bothered to notate because that's what I kind of threw together super quick. But that being said, I think it worked pretty well on the 2 fights that we tried it on. And it also, though I noticed some limitations, particularly expanding it to like a multi-combat fight and how that would work. And I just kind of wanted to talk about it. I'd like to talk about it with you all in the audience if you want to throw some stuff in chat. And I'd like to talk about it with those of us who are here and those of us who are here in spirit, but who have sent their manifesto to speak for them.
Well, first off, I did something somewhat similar, and I actually think it was my original Strange Aeons playthrough, in a dungeon that we very much have not gotten to yet. There was a section where I wanted a similar thing. To put this as spoiler light as possible, because it's a campaign we're doing, and this kind of effect is going to happen again, there was an area that was particularly difficult to navigate. There was like a magical effect that threw your sense of direction out of whack, made all the passageways look the same, made it almost impossible to remember where you have and have not been, which is completely impossible to do while you have a map on the screen. You literally have a map. And this is at the time that we're playing on a virtual tabletop, so we're playing on Roll20. So we have a map. Everyone has a very literal map that they can scroll and look around. I can't control that. It's not even like Arkenforge, where I can at least control where they're looking. I can control their fog of war, and that's it. So I did that in a similar fashion. We got sort of ham with it, but with like Darkest Dungeon-esque epic narration of them walking down these random hallways. But it was, by and large, like there's a fork, there's an intersection, there's a hall here, there's a door, what way do you go? And I wouldn't reveal anything on the map, I wouldn't show them anything until they had gotten into a situation. And then I airdropped them in to like a room that was relevant or had interest in it.
Right.
Because that's where the no map definitely starts to have corners, is when you want to fight something or when you want to see something. Or when there is something to see, I suppose. But 100%, I don't think, like, even the staunchest advocates of the map are going to push back at all about using it to crawl a dungeon, to walk around, to explore the halls, to see where everything is. I think people get hung up on it when it gets into the fighting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
We have that with our Iron Gods game we're running on Fridays. We have that a lot of, like, trying to navigate 5-foot wide hallways with a 6-man party, which, yes, it's 2 more than we're supposed to have, but we just have that many players. Even if you expanded the map a bit, trying to get 6 people down a tunnel and then like half the party can't see what the GM is describing that is on the other 3 players' screen, it becomes problematic. But if you just throw everyone at the entranceway to the room and everyone can see when you're going in, well, then you're good.
Right.
So, as Link was saying, being, I guess, an old boomer, I started role-playing in 2002, before you role played on maps and computers and
We had maps. You didn't
I'm
have
pretty sure they were
just
maps
drew
in
them.
But, like,
1985.
But what I'm saying is I didn't start role playing that way. I started role playing theater of the mind. Like
Right.
everything we did was in our heads. Like
a lot of that with Exalted.
with Old World of Darkness,
Mhm.
with Vampire the Masquerade, with most of the original role playing games I played, even with original D&D, we didn't necessarily have maps in a lot of the stuff that they were doing. Maps kind of became more of a thing, if I remember correctly, in 4th Ed. Like, that's when it started to become a really tactical
Fourth Ed
role
was
game.
very,
Well, yeah,
very
that
mappy.
because that became extremely board gamey. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like
Fourth
that
edition-
would hard required it.
It wasn't an MMO that they put into paper and pen.
But I mean, here's the thing. So is Pathfinder. Like,
Yeah, no, and it is. And I think that there are certain times and certain encounters. So, for instance, if you get to a point where you've got 3 or more, like, NPCs you're dealing with that are fighting with us, I'd think that it's going to start working less well
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
more people there are.
Because it's hard to, you're the only one who has, like, in the mind as the GM running it, you know, this was relative to this and this and this, but if I'm not paying attention to that enemy, and I'm focused on another one, I lose track of where that is in my mind.
Mhm.
And plus, then you need different markers for, like, you're in range of this person, but not this one, and not this one.
Right,
But
right.
you're like adjacent to this one, and could
Yeah.
step to get to them.
we do
and-
know it has difficulty with
Yeah.
multiple enemies. Like that was like the opening statement. Like
Yeah.
we know that's definitely a part that's going to be difficult.
Although
to
I have
configure.
thoughts on that.
Okay.
That we could get to later.
But we have to finish this part real quick before we move on. I think we've all played. We've even streamed like games that don't have a map. We played 10 Candles.
Yeah.
I don't even know
Did
how
we
you
play it?
begin.
Did we really?
I think 10 Candles played us.
You don't need
to
a
be
map.
Every
fair.
game
You don't
with
need a
10
map.
You don't
with
need
10
to map. The
candles.
game ends immediately.
Yeah, what happens is a monster shows up, and then you run away or die. That's how it works.
Well, we've also had Book 1 of Strange Aeons. We had an encounter with what was functionally an attic whisperer that I did entirely theater of the mind. That was a combat. They ended up not being they resolved it without much real combat, but that was like a whole boss fight that I was ready to run completely theater just because it wouldn't work on the map that I had. Because the map that I had is a room, and the situation we were in was like this kind of dreamlike expanse that like is within the room but much bigger than the room and has no real defined boundaries or edges or anything, and yeah, I can't do that when I have a literal map that's this big.
Yeah.
I think for that one, we legitimately, you had just made it. It is the square room, and there's the attic whisper in the center.
I had it
was-
like emanating darkness.
Yeah, it was just an
darkness on
emanation of
Arcane
darkness.
Forge.
So I would just, when someone moves in, I would just take their token, put them in the darkness.
They're gone.
They're
now.
gone the rest of the
And
fight.
the rest of it's purely theater of the mind.
If they get out of the room and they find their way out, they pop out right outside the room. That's
Right.
it. That's all I do.
That works. That works. Yeah.
I mean, I think the place where that kind of starts to break down is because so many characters have mechanics that are based around the things we're abstracting.
Yep.
Reach is a really hard one to manage because it's just like you're in range, but the other people aren't in range, so you're not flanking, but you are providing flanking.
I think it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Manage reach.
you've got some things. So there are some things that really break down. We
Fleet.
talked about basic fleet. The fleet
Yeah.
feet, throw it
Is
in the
useless.
trash. It
It's-
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
kind of gone if you.
Yeah.
Like 5 feet of movement speed is way too granular to have any impact on an abstract. For a monk or a swashbuckler, someone with like a ton of extra movement, I could basically say, well, you know, this is an archer down a long hallway. It'll take you 2 stride actions to get there, but the swashbuckler or the monk can get there in 1 action. But I mean, which really, if you think about it, is really the only time all that extra movement really matters.
It is uncommon
Volleys-
for the extra speed to be relevant.
Yeah.
Volley's one you'd also have to keep track of because that there is a direct mechanical feature of that beyond just like I can hit you from 5 feet with a reach weapon. Volley, you need to know if you're outside 30 feet.
Are you in a building? You're inside 30 feet.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like I think volley
I don't
is
think
really
that's hard
something
either.
like, are you taking a longbow inside of a building? That's not a good idea. Like I think that's just gonna happen.
That's been generally inadvisable for
Many times.
the whole of the existence of the longbow.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a battlefield weapon, and it shows. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, a lot of these edge cases are actually fairly easy to ad hoc away. Like, I mean, the biggest one we had in the last fight, the first fight, I suppose, the Mr. Beak fight, Derp's got Retributive Strike, right? It's like, it's a 15-foot range. Are you within 15 feet or not? It's just going to be like, oh, hey, Demonic Fire 66, thank you for subscribing.
Hey, Travis.
Is he within range or is he not within range? Though it was simple for me. I just went, you're always in range.
Yeah, you're in a small room.
You're in a small room. You're
far enough away
always
from
in
me to
range.
matter.
You can retrieve to strike anybody. I mean, and if you're within melee, you can even hit the enemy, right?
Yeah.
And so the melee tag that I stuck on there was like, can you swing your weapon? Reach weapon, I mean, I don't know. We could probably ad hoc something, but again, you lose that tactical granularity of the reach weapon. The reach weapon would lose a bit of stuff.
It also depends a lot on the encounter, too.
Thanks, Maverick.
Hey, we got a Zinder and came in with
Oh,
chat.
hey, Zindern.
Hey.
Nice in.
Zinder
As an
tier.
aside, how people benefit from having maps vastly matter from person to person. Someone without a lot of, for lack of a better word, imagination can very easily struggle visualizing these scenarios. That's also very true. That's also a fair point. Like, the theater of the mind is harder to enter for a lot of people. I feel like I'm pretty decently good at visualizing things and just having like an imaginary freaking anime playing in my head of what we're doing.
Yeah.
I know for a fact Bryn is not. Bryn, not like just as she has said this to me, can't really like imagine. She's looking at a map and like she sees tokens on a map and can kind of like describe things that are happening, but there's not like a scene playing in her head,
Right.
kind of thing. She like her brain just doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Have you
that's
seen
absolutely fine.
it's like a chart of how people visualize things in their mind, and it's like a picture of an apple, and it's more and then less detailed depending on how your brain perceives things, like imaginative versus reality.
Depends on whether you
Because-
like apples or not, I take it.
Well, it's
How
Like-
much do you care about the apple?
I'm on the side of the scale of I don't see pictures in my head. I never see anything.
That's-
Like I can't imagine anything. I imagine the details of it.
So you think in words then?
Yes, I
That's
think in
the
words
same
and
way
ideas.
Hexy is. I know Hexy. There's a word for it. Hexy cannot visualize something.
Yeah, I can't put an
Um,
image in my head. I will, like, you tell me green apple. The only things that come into mind is the shape, the concept of an apple,
you can't like
and the color.
picture a green apple.
Yes.
Like, yeah, there's a surprisingly, like, it's one of those things that's just insane for me to attempt to even conceptualize because, you can't imagine how somebody else's brain works.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine, because like Zendern said, the example is, can you spin the cow in your mind?
Right.
Yeah.
Blows my mind that there's people that can't do that.
They can't
Yeah,
do it.
like,
you
I'm
can't
doing it right
imagine
now.
a cow and it's just
Yeah.
rotating.
No, I
Like,
saw
that's-
that in my, and
Yeah.
he incepted me, and my
Yeah.
the cow
It's-
immediately
yeah.
started doing pirouettes.
It's crazy to me that not everyone can do that. The brains and the way people think work so differently that some people can't visualize
And I
an
know,
object like that.
and I know that this is counterintuitive.
Advantage is what it is. Yes.
Ooh, that's
Thank
a really
you.
good word. I like that word.
That's an awesome word.
You're gonna make that a new spell to go
Zinder and
alongside
incepted the
synesthesia.
entire chat. Is
No!
apparently what
Now
happened.
everyone's imagining a rotating cow if
Why?
you're capable of doing so.
Thank God I'm not lactose.
Those who can't, you are spare.
Thank God I'm not lactose intolerant.
That's how a cow works.
Wait, it's not.
You just see a cow. Ugh!
I think that is how. Wait, it's not. I've been lied to.
You're not allergic to cows, no.
Wow. Now it just flew out of my head. All right, I got it back.
Just like the cow.
This is gonna be the new version of the game.
Yeah.
It's just like, are
The
you
cow.
thinking about the cow?
Crap!
Hey Nick, have you thought about the cow lately?
Well, I am
Damn
now.
it.
Thank you.
So when I look at the map, I actually can tell less of where I am and what I'm doing, and I spend more time trying to figure out what the hell that 5-foot square is and what it means in relationship to my character than just picturing 30 feet in my head and going, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I can either hit them or I can't hit them.
There's absolutely nothing that takes you out of both like the actual action and whatever roleplay is happening at the table than sitting there going 5, 10, 15, 20,
Yeah,
25.
yeah.
No, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30.
Wait, that's the
Okay,
second
hold on,
diagonal,
no,
that's
wait, let me see,
35
is that
now.
difficult terrain? There's
And-
zero things in the planet that take you out of the scene more than doing that.
And I have no depth perception. So trying to look at this screen and figure out where everyone is in relationship to where my character is takes me even longer. So, like, not having to think about that. First of all, I love not being a caster for a minute. Because, God,
Taking a
not
break.
Taking a break from a
You
caster.
don't have a spell list that's 7 pages of crap you have to
Just be
remember.
a prep caster.
my
Then you
God.
only have a limited one.
Thaumaturge. I love Thaumaturge so much. But that's another story. Anyway, I think that there are situations and people for whom it is very advantageous. I know Bobby was saying that
Bobby
his
super loves it.
Yeah.
ADHD is much less distracted because he
Our
doesn't
two
have to think of that.
strongest, our two strongest proponents, other than Nick himself, for this are not here. Bobby with the extreme in favor, and Derp with the extreme against.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
like definitely.
Well, he's
the
here.
two-
He's just in chat.
Derp's in the chat. Those are the two strongest.
I have his
Neither of them-
manifesto.
That's what we got. Derp's manifesto. We should have got Bobby's manifesto.
There is the one point that Derb did bring up in one of his later things here is
The
things
one point.
Well, there's many.
Sorry,
here.
we're redacting
One
the
of
rest of your
points-
manifesto, Derp.
One of the points
Uh-huh.
does have to do with AoE spells, and he does make a good point,
Mm-hmm.
which is the GM is the only person who is now capable of determining who is and is not in an AoE beyond just going, I'm going to move to where I try to hit the least amount of people. And that is the only thing you can ever do with an AoE, like Cone from you, is
Sure.
Or the
the
most amount of
GM
people.
now determines this versus I can tactically plan where I'm going to get to cast this.
Sure, yeah, and there is a where again you are losing a good part of the tactical war game, right? So the way with the Mr. Beak fight, for example, Bobby's really trying to warm up Burning Hands to go catch this Mr. Beak. Well, Mr. Beak is right in Derp's face, right? And I'm like, there is no universe you do not hit him.
Which
And
is literally a call I've made with a map. And they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we're in a big open field, and a dude's find another dude, and you're like, I throw a fireball, so it only hits the one dude. I'm like, no, you freaking don't.
Exactly.
Like, they're fighting.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I have room. I don't care if you have room. You're not, that's not, the fireball is not a perfect globe that ceases to exist 1 inch outside of it. No, you're not hitting one guy with a fireball in that fight.
Yeah, yeah. And like that, and that's the thing is that you've actually done that before. Just it's like you're not doing trigonometry while swords are swinging and people are shouting. Like it's
This is called an Age of Ashes.
Yeah, there you go.
That
And-
was what I'm talking about. Is in book 2 in that big mind fight.
Yeah. Although I do wonder if it is, like, if we can run it so that we can use it maybe in big cinematic boss fights where it's just you versus one person.
I think 1 and 2, like 1 and 2 people, you can handle it very easily with this.
Like, because at that point, it doesn't matter. You're not doing AoE stuff anyway. Like, unless
I mean, they
feel like we
they
have
did.
Some stuff is.
Yeah.
I feel like we have instantaneously gotten lost in some like really honestly kind of niche edge case sauce.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not talked at all about like the benefits and drawbacks of the system.
Sure.
We
So-
like we immediately got into
Well,
weeds.
all
I-
of this is
like-
really just is in-depth discussion on individual elements of one drawback, which is the loss
some
of
the
tactical
strategy.
granularity.
Yes, we know that. We talked about that.
Yeah.
But there's
There
a lot of
there's
other
a lot of strengths.
there's
though.
other pros and cons around this system.
I also
Like,
don't think mixing it's a bad thing. Like having it, so perfect example of something I wanted to make work when I was running Extinction Curse, and just because I was using Roll20, really didn't have a way to without vastly overcomplicating a fight and spending about 4 hours just setting up things in Roll20 for one combat.
there's 100% like definitely a situation for
Yeah.
both. But
It was the Mr. Sus-like fight in Extinction Curse, spoilers for book 2. I'd set up the party where essentially their job was go in, fight Mr. Sus-like, and it was going to start with tactical combat in her room. It's a very tiny space, 5 of them, 1 of her. She's got some stuff to deal with them, but she's still 5v1 in a tiny room.
Mm-hmm.
Halfway through the fight, she teleports everyone into a mirror maze. And at that point, they don't see each other, they see their allies as Dusklight. But to get that to work and make it so that the tokens tracked their health and not Dusklight, but also showed Dusklight with the nameplate and everything, they didn't update the tokens at the time, so I had to like copy and paste 30 different Dusklights, and then they all shared a health pool, but that wasn't how it was actually working, because if they hit not Dusklight, they hit their friends.
Really good way to do theater of the mind.
That
on
We are
that's
so-
exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's like if I had theatered of that,
fantastically in the weeds.
Yeah.
if I had theatered that, it would have been great.
Right. Would have made it just easier.
And it would have been like a good balance of you have the tactical fight at the start, now you have this in a full like mindscape, figure out what's going on. You're in a mirror maze, you can't tell where you're going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it mixes the like exploration of trying to figure your way out with the combat itself.
All right, so pros, you don't spend a whole bunch of time measuring movement.
Yes.
You don't spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure out where the hell you are and taking back 3 different things because you thought you could do something you couldn't do and it wasn't going to work out because you weren't where you thought
Pros
you were.
or combat is a billion times faster. I
Yeah,
think
it is a
that is like
billion times
that is the
faster.
big obvious primary pro
Mhm.
to removing the map is you just say you do a thing, the GM figures out what needs to happen, how many actions, how you do it, and you do it. There is no like, am I within 50 feet of this? Can I fit here? Can I do this without clipping this thing? Never mind, I thought I'd be in range of that, so I wouldn't have moved there. None of that. Absolutely none of that. It's much quicker. The pace keeps going. It goes turn to turn to turn to turn, and things happen continuously.
Right. Yeah. On the con side, you lose that tactical granularity, which different people will care about more, right? I'm reminded of the great saying, there are no, there's no...
Crying in baseball?
No, I just blanked it. It's a great one. There's no solutions, only trade-offs. That's it. No solutions, only trade-offs. So it's, if you, with the addition of granularity, you get all of this crunch, which it can be a really great thing, right? And certainly there's plenty of support in the chat. Derp is in there furiously typing and defending it because he really likes it, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of talk about, Kineticist has all this granularity with like the 10-foot burst, the 15-foot. In my version, it's kind of like you can hit him.
Like,
that's what it turns into.
You're there.
It turns in you got him.
Bag him.
That's how that works.
And can I just say how much of a bat I would like to take to Kineticist, and not just a Nerf bat, maybe a baseball bat too?
Just break some kneecaps.
Yeah, but
don't worry, they'll just regrow them instantly with their infinite healing.
Well,
but
I mean, in 10-minute time.
It is somewhat like I suppose the very obvious point. If you make the thing less complicated, it's easier to do the thing more smoothly. That is the bare essence.
I mean, if I took the story out, the whole episode would go way quicker.
It is the bare essence
combat.
of the removing the map concept. Is we obviously lose a lot of tactics and granularity, but that's almost by design. If you pull out some of the complexity, you can replace it with more momentum. You can replace it with more consistent forward movement. You can replace it with more ease of play.
Sure.
But that's sort of a statement of the obvious. Less complex is easier. That's by the merit of the fact that it's less complex.
Yeah, it's easier and it's faster. That's true. But you do, and I will also say one thing for the tactical wargame aspect of it, because kind of mulling it over in my mind, is that you lose the puzzle. Because a map is a puzzle. It is, what's your optimal move on this circumstances, given all of the movable things? Is it you're trying to do more damage? Are you trying to prevent damage? Are you trying to heal your party? Are you trying to keep your resources? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to stop the evil villain from flipping the switch, which will drown the village, right? There's a lot of, what's my optimal move in this situation?
Still upset over that one?
Huh?
Still upset over that one?
Upset over that? Favorite? Why? We did that,
While
actually.
your unhealable swashbuckler gets murdered in the corner.
I mean,
I know what you're referencing. That's only happened one time.
Look,
I'm not bitter about it. Don't worry.
It wasn't my swashbuckler.
she made that choice.
Colby made that choice.
Colby made that choice, and also made the choice for make the swashbuckler unhealable. So,
Look,
nobody expects a 20-foot AoE.
Look,
AOO.
Fifth Ed is not simple. It's just broken.
Fifth Ed's not
that because it doesn't have rules, so you just make up what you want to do.
No, it has.
It is theater of the mind. You just make it up.
Well, I mean, it has some rules that aren't the best.
They're mildly
got
balanced.
rules. They're just I don't think it's really intended to be balanced. It's
Fifth
just
Ed
here's a bunch of powers.
Was a
cool.
great game when it came out. It was the best game that was on the market when it came out.
For a couple of years,
there are better games
awesome
now.
Which is meant to be. It's built to be a lot looser. It's not meant to be like a balanced war game. It's meant to be pick your class power fantasy and go bananas.
They went from 3.5 Pathfinder First Edition complexity to 4th Edition, dear God, no, to 5th Edition, where you can actually get people to play the game now.
I find it funny that you hate on 4th Edition when Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the spiritual successor to 4th Edition.
It is, but it is in a good way. It's because
it's
closer
to 4th Ed than anything else, I would say.
It's because it had competency behind it.
It's focus points and the 10-minute rest system and everything.
It is closer to 4th Ed.
It's definitely got its own 3 actions and degrees of success and all that's hugely different. But I honestly think 2nd Edition is closer to 4th Edition D&D than any other tabletop.
So first off, 4th Ed was basically
traumatizing.
Take all of the role-playing abilities out of the game,
which is a very regular complaint people have about Pathfinder, especially when they're new to it.
There's tons of role-playing stuff in there.
I don't know
literally
how
give
they
you a
can make that
description of all of
complaint.
the
Because they're
things.
like, well, I can't roleplay because I don't have this feat that says that I can. There's a feat that says you can do this thing if you talk to someone for a minute. Like, I'm not trained in diplomacy. I'm not a charisma character, so I can't roleplay because there's numbers on your character sheet that say you can't, and there's feats that exist that let you do it that you don't have. That's a very
common
regular
criticism.
complaint.
A common
I'm not
criticism.
saying it's right. I'm saying it's a very regular complaint about Pathfinder as well, that it's like too much of a video game to allow you to roleplay.
I don't want to say that like I think
Which
D&D
is
was
insane. Watch any of our shows.
Yeah,
But like,
I don't want to say D&D 4th Ed was a bad game. It makes a really good board game.
Yes.
They actually made some board games that were like that were actually really fun, and I would really like Derp. You would love those board games.
You would.
Derp, I think you legitimately
He
like.
would.
Yeah.
He would love 4th edition.
4th edition feels like it was.
4th edition plays like
I have no interest in playing 4th edition as an RPG, but I
It
love
feels like it's
a
Divinity.
great board game.
Yeah.
It feels more like Divinity.
It's
than a
Divinity,
Or
tabletop.
Descent.
but it feels like it's
Original
marketed
Descent.
at Munchkins.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
I mean, maybe I don't know. I never played it enough to munchkin it.
Because 4th edition, a lot of how it was built out was like, it was the Pathfinder 1st edition of like, I have these 6 abilities that I can trigger on my turn, but the enemy can counter 2 of those. So I have a +6 to this, but a -2 from them. And it was a lot of number crunching up and down through just like these one-off abilities you have.
4th edition had a ton of number crunchiness.
It did.
No,
I mean,
it-
there was definitely there. It was in there, but
It
I
was
didn't
more
think-
mappiness than crunchiness.
Yeah,
There
It
was a lot of
a lot
shifting.
of
There was a
map
lot of
Yeah.
map,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of positioning things and a lot of like specific ranges and everything.
It was more for Warhammer 40k players. I maintain that the Warhammer 40k players,
everyone.
like they literally,
Feel personally
Infection.
attacked.
they infected Wizards of the
That's
Coast.
what I mean. That's what all of this came from. That's what D&D was in the first place. Is it was just
It
like
was
a
a tabletop
smaller
war game.
scale war game.
Yeah.
Like, it was like first edition original D&D is just straight up a war game. It's not meant to
Which
be
isn't
like.
which isn't to say
role-playing.
I don't love Warhammer 40k. I have 5 3,000 plus armies painted in my house. Okay,
I mean,
let's
I,
not.
it's like I painted them, but
I
you know.
painted 2 of them.
Yeah, you did. You
My
did.
I
brother.
love Warhammer just for the universe. It's so cool.
That's a great one.
I
But-
don't like
I
the
own
war game side.
Oh, Zendern doesn't like 40k. It's okay.
It's
you
okay.
can be wrong.
You can be wrong,
Yeah.
Xander.
I mean, they hated Jesus because he spoke the truth. It's a crap game. Like, it's a crap game with a really interesting universe and setting that everyone likes. The game is
It's
ass.
the Shadowrun
The
The game
game
is
is-
ass.
yeah.
It is
Yes.
the shadow. Exactly.
Yeah.
It is the shadow run of war games.
Yes.
The world is awesome. The lore and everything is awesome. The game sucks. Okay.
terrible.
I tried to play Shadowrun once. Never again.
I didn't even get through character creation because I got to the point in character creation where it goes, determine how you live your life. Also, to figure this out, you need to reference 6 pages in the back of the book, 3 in the middle, 2 in the front, one of which you already did, but you didn't finish doing.
I stopped playing when there's a class that literally was like, okay, everyone stop because I'm going to play my different game now.
Yeah.
It's like has nothing to do
First
with
I'm
what's
gonna
going
go
on.
in the Matrix.
Yeah, hacking time.
Yeah.
All right, pause this game. I want to play my game.
Hold on, I'm going to
So-
play some System Shock real quick.
It's time to bring up the elephant in the room though, because we're not just.
That's a fish.
Hi, Borbo. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you an elephant. Because
Bones.
we're not just playing a game, we're also doing a show.
Sure. Yeah.
So our job is also to be entertaining.
I think
Yeah.
the smoothness and the speed that we get from no map is dramatically more valuable. We're getting into like the behind the scenes here. Dramatically more valuable to us than it is to an average group.
Yes,
Correct.
and
Especially
that's-
because real talk, if you are here right now watching it, like the stream is open and you're looking at it, you're probably lying. I'm on your
Don't you lie
second
to us.
monitor. I'm on your second monitor and you're hearing me, or I might not even be the active tab. You're not looking at the map. None of you are. I mean, it's not none of you, but it is a very small group that's actually looking at the screen.
Derp,
See
you
this? You see this? You see that?
Derp,
They
you don't
know.
count.
They know because I'm right. Like
I looked over when you said
Most
that.
of
You're
exactly.
on my TV. That's just creepy.
So he's
most
playing on
of
his
the
phone.
audience is just listening. Like that's just the way that it is. This is like
Phone called it. Called it.
That's just a truth. That's just a fact of life. So us getting stuck talking about stuff on a map that 90 to 95% of our audience isn't looking at is slowing us down a lot for definitely like whatever game we may have with the tactics and everything, but not a whole lot from the viewer perspective. And it helps, it lets us go faster and more smoothly for a better, I mean, what this functionally is like podcasting experience, more or less.
Yeah.
It's way more valuable to us than it would be a home group.
It also, like, I was going to bring this up when we were discussing VTTs and, like, measuring distance earlier. That's easy to do in VTTs because most of the time you have your own measuring tools. So when it's not your turn, you're like, okay, I want to get to here. Pull out the measuring tool. That is 35 feet. Okay, that's going to take me 2 actions.
Is kind of
okay, my
Chat.
cones, I can make measurements on my screen that no one else sees to figure out where I'm going to hit with this.
Just make sure you
Boundary
click the
powers.
toggle to make sure no one can see them. Otherwise, you're doing graffiti all over the map.
Don't worry, I have a player that does
raise
that.
my hand here for a second and boomer myself by saying, what the heck is a VTT?
Virtual tabletop.
It's the thing you play on for our Roll20 game.
It's an arcade
Funny,
forge.
Foundry.
I've
thing is splitting
literally
it up,
never
yeah.
heard
Yeah.
it called that before, so
Yeah.
I just
It's-
needed that clarified.
No, it's all
Tabletop where the map goes.
Boomer.
But, oh, my brain fell out of my face. I forgot what I was going to say. I had a thought. It's gone. Anyway,
Nick has the mental ruler. I don't.
40K
We can't
player.
all be math man.
it's
This is
also-
why we do the Theater of the Mind combat with him, because he knows where everything is down to the foot.
It's also kind of hard to do the mental ruler because, like, the screen for the players is not in reach out and touch it range. So, like, that really does make a difference. You have to, like, look and kind of be like, it's kind of
it's
hard to
true.
lose
Yeah.
track. It was very easy to lose track of exactly where you were.
Further behind the
Although-
scenes, the screens for our players are maybe like, what, 4
I mean,
or 5 feet?
they're big and as close as we can
Yeah.
get them. But
Dungeon Speedrun did bring up a good point. When folks arrive late and have missed the description, being able to glance at the map to see what's going on, to quickly pick up what the fight is doing at that moment is a really good
this
point.
is the show con. I had a
Yep.
pro and a con for doing this as a show, and the speed was the pro, and the con is that the map is a useful tool for people to check in. Though people are not consistently, most of them, watching the stream, they're listening to it. They can be like, what? And look over and check and verify and see, oh, okay. And then go back to whatever they were doing, or see what some position is, or again, if they just showed up. If they just got here 3/4 of the way through a fight and they're like, okay, they're not going to know exactly what everything is or what's going on, but they can see a general layout.
Right.
And that's why I kind of wanted to bring up what I like to call an in-between option. So what I was looking for in doing some research on are maps that we can have up so that we know what the room looks like, especially if it's an important room. We know what's in the room, we know where everything is, but we don't necessarily need to keep to the squares in a religious sense necessarily in the fight if we want to make it more cinematic. Like, we can have a sense of what the room is like, and then if it's a huge room and we want to go more cinematic, we can then take it into theater of the mind so people can still know what the room and everything looks like, but the movements on it are still kind of abstracted.
I think I see what you're getting at. I think that would be hard to do on a map that has a grid.
Yeah.
Because what you're advocating for is basically just bullheadedly pretending that the map isn't there, more or less.
Right.
Well, not
if you
necessarily
had,
a
like,
grid
if you had
map,
a
but like a
hypothetical-
picture.
Yeah, if you had a hypothetical like shape of a room or a layout that like did not have a grid,
Yeah.
so it would give you a lot more leeway to be general
Yeah.
about
Kinda-
where you're going and what you're doing and distance and everything.
We kind of had that in the now lost and begotten Troubles in Otari stuff.
Well, yeah,
Because we had just the rough room.
Well,
and
the issue is that the amount of work that the showrunner wound up having
Yes.
to do was intense
The-
to be able
it's-
to do that on the fly.
Yeah, your original like randomly generated rooms idea
See,
thing. Yeah.
Well, it was basically you have like template rooms, and you
Yeah.
can throw props in them if you want to, but like you have to do that on the fly.
it's a case of like I myself, because I've been doing this for 3 years straight, I have no issues doing that. Tossing it to Corey, which this is
This
like
is his first show. I
yeah,
think.
his
this
first one
isn't
he's
a
run,
dig
so
at Corey.
Yeah.
he's just gotta.
He has 4 shows under his belt, 5 with a one shot.
He's still learning all the tools.
He's still figuring out where things are in OBS and how to change sound sets in Sirenscape and how to
Well, it
adjust
doesn't
volume.
matter who's running it. It's okay. So the whole reason we had someone, the whole reason we split this into a separate role because we spent years of 2 perception before UGT.
Yeah.
With me behind the screen with a tiny little stupid monitor and my literal regular streaming set up to the side of me.
Oh, the good
You
old
can see the
days.
corner of the GM table in the background of my personal streams.
Yeah, I may say you did great.
Running
You were amazing.
the game and running the Sirenscape sound sets and the music and the maps and doing all that as well. And the reason we split that in the first place is because it made both halves of that, running the game and running the show, worse. because of the split focus. And it's the more stuff you pile on any one person for responsibilities, is the more it's going to get to that. If you're now in charge of also literally building maps
on the fly,
you're not going to be available to move cameras around or to play sound effects or to notice, even not even, I was gonna say fix problems, but even notice there's a problem. Like the stream could disconnect and you might not even see for like 2 minutes because you're over here building a map, getting ready for a combat. And you're like, oh, we haven't been live for I don't know how long.
Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah.
Like, so like the more, I'm not saying that there's not more room for the people in the pilot seat right now to do more stuff, but build a map on the fly is kind of
and if I wanted to build all those maps ahead of time, like Abomination Vaults has like easily 80 rooms that I would have to go and build. That would be a lot of work.
We'd pretty much have to selectively pre-choose the fights that we have available for that week, and then if we don't go that way, well, that fight got moved. It's there now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the fact of like just running a show. You don't know how far your players are going to get. You try to plan for what you can do, but they don't always turn left. So,
that's an interesting idea, Twitchy.
Had a chat command like map that would give a link to a rendered map with players. I mean, we just have the map.
Yeah, if we're not playing with a map, nobody's making a map.
Yeah,
like, there's not a map.
The issue with that is
there's
also
not a map on the back end.
We wouldn't have a way to easily do that because it would require us to constantly be capturing the map screen and then have it be like a
this
screenshot.
This is irrelevant. We literally do not have a map. Like, so that combat we have with Mr. Beak and the combat with the terror worm thing.
Yeah, they called it the Blood Siphon was the name of it.
There was not a map to link. Like, because
we just didn't
as a side effect of us not playing with one and having just general descriptions, like there isn't a hard and physical position where everybody is. They're just like you had with your little markers, they're like vaguely close enough to hit them.
Yep.
Or they're on the floor. Or
it's
whatever.
like, oh, you go into flanking position? Sure. Spend a move action to stride to flanking position. There. Now you and your buddy are in flanking position.
Yeah, you're doing stabbing now.
Yep.
You're in the stabbing hole.
I do think we could also partially, this is just a random afterthought of having mentioned the markers, you could offload a lot of that on the GM. It's like, okay, you're in melee range. We flip a thing.
Oh,
just have like a little display here,
make
and
the
then
players
we track it.
Change who's
Yeah, we
in
track
melee
what
range.
we are.
Oh, that's true. You could have your own little set. I see what you mean, like a little set of flags, like right here or something.
Yeah, and just a little
where they're
flipboard.
dealing with it.
Just because then we track it and you don't.
Then
have
you wouldn't
to.
have 50 clothes pins on your initiative tracker.
We could also
which
see
would
your
probably
face.
make it easier for you to
Yeah.
move your
When
initiative
you
tracker.
stack three
But
of
the
those,
spectacle, man.
it was fun.
Your
It was
three-pillar
funny.
clothespins
Was
a funny
hysterical.
meme, but it probably was not the optimal way to set that up.
You
This is
definitely were
also-
like cut in half.
I literally like threw those clothespins together like the day
of.
before because Corey
Yeah.
was sick.
This,
So.
this is also like that was the first trial you've ever thrown in it. So,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
that was you had a system. You had we experimented with it once. I'm sure you have obviously seen like flaws and improvements that are possible. It's the concept that we're discussing is not exactly literally the thing that we did. That's the example. That's the trial that we've had. But just the concept of running with or without a map entirely.
Also, and this was something that Nick and I were talking about on the way home after the stream, is what we called zones of influence, where you kind of have your average range that people are within. So most people have a speed of 25 feet. So most of the time, if you're within 25 feet, you're within range at one movement. If you're outside of, let's say, 50 feet, I think it's going to probably take most of their turn to get there. And if you're outside of that, you're out of the fight. So you're either at reach, so you're up in their face, you're engaged.
See, but here's the thing. While you're doing this, you have your 25-foot zone, your 50-foot zone, your ranges of engagement here, and like line of sight if there's a doorway, and then this guy's also standing in the doorway, so nobody can pass through him unless they're friendly, and you have these two dudes flanking, this guy's up against the wall. You know what would make that all easy to track?
A map.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
If you gotta lean into it or not, I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like if you're
It's like ways to abstract it. So like thoughts of like multiple encounters, right?
Right.
Basically, the only way you could do multiple encounters and have it make sense is you would have like individual melees, right?
You'd have to
So
have like a green
there's-
token, a yellow token, and an orange token.
Yeah, it's like
Mark 'em.
these enemies are going to be in the green group, right? Like if we're just going to color them to make them distinct, right? And then we have enemies in the red group that are in the back up here shooting arrows at you. It's like, and you have to take strides to move between the groups if you wanted to go and engage them. But that's yet more information I'm cramming onto our tokens.
Yeah.
And could we go and do that? Yeah, probably we could. I might just be able to theater of the mind it. The way it would basically work is any enemy group you're engaged with all of them. and you can swing on all of them, and the opportunity to flank doesn't exist unless you outnumber them, and then you can just pick a guy and flank them.
At which point, troop rules exist, which half of
That's
that takes
true.
care of
There's
literally
troop
immediately.
rules, yeah, which is basically just functionally making a swarm out of individual dudes.
Yeah,
It's close to
it's
what
a
you're
different.
describing.
Yeah, it's a different
definitely
system that I
different.
don't know, so I'm leery of it.
It's a
but
pseudo swarm.
I don't like things that are different, but here I am making things that are different.
I don't like
They're
things that are
actually-
different. Removes map.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
very
Red.
useful for if you like, this dude has a horde of minions, but I don't feel like putting 14 skeleton tokens on the board, so they're just a clump. And that's the 14 skeletons.
I'm sure not putting 6 skeleton tokens down for the 6 skeletons that we're hypothetically going to need immediately when we start streaming.
You mean
on
the things that are
Saturday.
already
I'm
on
just
the
gonna
map?
put like one skeleton and be like, that's
Oh,
them.
on your
Like,
side, yes. On the map, I'll have 6 skeletons.
Yeah, I'm just. Oh yeah, no. Those. I'm gonna have one on the board, like
Yeah.
for table cam. Like, then that's the skeleton. It's like, I'm not pulling
They'll
6
move as
I'm
a
not moving
unit.
6 tokens for that crap.
But see, once we were at like level 9 or 10, what you were okay with was take the hit points, divide by 2. Fight that.
Well, that's
Well,
just called.
this is a different thing.
Yeah, it's a
now we're
different
getting
thing.
into balancing the system.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just a Pathfinder issue.
Well, did you want to reference Derp's manifesto since he's trying to
we've
type
gone
tap
actually
it into bits?
quite a bit of it because he's decided to show up and just spout
Yeah,
his.
he said. I think he
his
said a lot
self.
of it in the chat. And he's got his ideas. But let's. Are we getting into like? We've had our general assessment for play. Obviously, removing complexity enables smoothness and speed. You lose tactical granularity and strategic value, but you gain ease of play and momentum. For a show, most people aren't watching. Most people aren't looking. It's podcast is second monitor content. We're making a map for people that aren't looking at it. And for the podcast of us being faster and smoother and cleaner is a better listening experience. But people that come in or people that want to check don't have anything to reference with, and it's really hard to get on board halfway through a fight. I think those were our main game pro con
Agreed.
and show pro con
Yeah.
for map and no map. Those are the big general points. Does anyone have any other big general points that would not be a subset of one of those four? Because as far as I could think of planning for this talk, that was what I came up with. That I think pretty much is broad enough to encompass
That sounds like a really
more or
good.
less the whole of the
Yeah.
up and down side from both the gamer and the showrunner perspective.
That sounds like a pretty good summary.
Yeah,
We've-
that and it does invalidate some character things. Like
Yes.
there are a lot of types of players and types of characters that would be made that are invalidated by that system.
I don't even think it's that drastic to be. It's not as drastic as you think. Like certain things, like fleet as a feat, might as well not exist.
Yeah, it's just.
But
take
I mean,
something else.
aside from that, it's like, do reach weapons? They become less. First
They
off,
become unbalanced.
on the war game. On the tabletop war game with the grid, reach weapons are the greatest things in the world. It's okay if you disagree with me. You can be wrong. But
pick up a halberd and change your life.
yeah, pick up a halberd and change your life.
Put
Like,
down
it's
your shield and
literally
die.
Take
that
attack
good.
of opportunity, grab a reach weapon.
Yeah, and
have fun.
and watch the smile
Watch the
creep over
fear
your
in your
face.
GM's eyes
Absolutely.
as they attempt to make anything threatening.
It's like if you have a great sword, but you could have a halberd, you're doing it wrong.
If you want to play,
Except for Drevin, because I like him. He's fine. He's great. He's
if you
want to
play a fighter at level 1 who has a reach weapon, you just get to have the Doom theme playing from 1 to 20.
Hey, good luck with literally all of your balance level 1 encounters GMs. They're not getting over here.
Yeah, exactly. And so
You
that's
live on the ground now.
that reach ability, the fact that I hit 150% more area than someone with a sword is gone. Like that doesn't exist, and it's more like I could ad hoc certain situations where it would be useful, but the ability to protect yourself would be something that would require some narrative shenanigans and would probably not come up as often.
I'm gonna need you to not bring up two-handed weapons in the presence of the thaumaturge. We don't believe in two-handed weapons around
Just
here.
because they're illegal.
Well,
we
it's
have
the only
something called
It
an
only
implement.
turns off 2/3 of your class.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm gonna need you to calm down on the two-handed weapons.
well, I mean,
okay?
we had to do something to keep thaumaturges from ruling the planet.
Hobgoblin boarding pike, one-hand reach weapon.
Whip,
Yeah.
even.
Whip's pretty good too.
I
Like
mean-
Spike Whip is actually like you can make Leon Belmont, and
You pick a Belmont and it's Leon.
Yeah.
That's the one that comes. That's the one off rip.
is the first one on top of my head. I just
Did you not
the
watch
lightest
the anime?
one floated
How
to
is
the
Leon
top.
the first one that comes? Okay, whatever.
'Cause that's what
It's
happens
like-
when
The
a
anime-
goblin-
of all the Belmonts,
We're
Leon's
immediately
the first
ending
one I'm
stream and having this
okay,
man
no,
watch
I've
Castlevania.
just been side like it blows my mind that that's the
It
first one
lost
that
my
would come to
interest
mind.
like 3 episodes in.
You
I'm
did
sorry.
manage to get the
Listen-
cow out of his brain for a second.
Like-
There you go.
Dang
Well,
it.
there it is, back in again.
He's just spinning.
Yes, everyone likes Trevor. He's better. This is true. Anyway, but like, yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's that blah. But regardless, yeah, reach is less important and loses a lot of its punch, I think. But does the character not work? I mean, people talked about kineticist, which is like, well, you have a 10-foot person, a 15-foot person, a 20-foot person, a 25-foot person. You can hit them. Your character still functions. Like, it's not like that it doesn't work anymore. This granularity doesn't matter anymore.
It makes spells harder to use in some circumstances because the ranges on them really do matter.
It is the case of, like, again, tactical wargame side, casters, people want to do the I hit one guy that isn't my ally with the fireball by sending it over his shoulder.
Right, but we don't let them do that anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I already said that.
That doesn't matter.
If your AoE is wider than 10
again,
feet, no, you can't fire it into 2 people fighting.
If we're using a map, there's no reason that you can't beyond the GM saying you can't.
Yeah, you're not doing
But the rules do
trigonometry.
directly
but-
say they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it
And
is,
I say that's stupid. So
Yeah.
so they
It
don't.
doesn't have to be agreed on. It's just that's a thing people do want to do is I'm going to fireball the room. Sometimes the case is yes, the GM says, okay, you're going to hit all your friends. Did I ask? I said I fireball the room.
We all love our memes.
No, that's just Colby's character.
Danger close.
Yeah, danger close. Colby, danger close.
Now Kevin is danger
Colby
close now. He
never
is,
asked,
Kevin-
am I going to hit someone? He just cast.
Well, Kevin is now Colby's danger close because he is saving up money to buy alchemical bombs to throw and hit MD with.
Nice.
Specifically MT.
Specifically him.
Damn.
Because he got banned from having them once and is now on a mission.
Oh, well, you know what? There you go. That's how alchemical archetypes come into play.
The man tried to make mustard gas in the asylum.
They maybe should have been in the asylum.
Yeah,
maybe
maybe
they
I
they
mean-
belong
Definitely
there.
should have
Maybe-
been in the asylum.
Maybe they were in the right place all along. Maybe we should have just left them
I don't
there.
even know the adventure needed
Yeah.
to happen. I think they should just stay in the asylum.
The world would have, in fact,
Yeah.
if Strange Aeons hadn't happened, it would be a better place.
But I mean, even like if we talk about like, yeah, you lose some granularity on casters, but really it's like, hey, there's a group of archers up on this thing. I'm going to fireball them. Sure. There. The
Yeah.
range didn't matter. Hey, I want to ray of frost this person across the field. Sure, you hit them. Produce flame. Well, you need to, you're one away for them. Sure, what you can get to them in a stride. Sure, you can produce flame them. I mean, like it's something. It's not like it's something that you couldn't easily get around with the caster AOE's.
Gary does make a good point. Maybe bards were a mistake because both of our bards have been extremely party damage heavy.
I don't know.
Bards were a mistake.
My dwarf
Bards.
was fine.
That's because it was Plague Stone, and he didn't have a chance to get to anybody.
Plague
Yeah,
Stone
that's
itself.
I was
true.
too busy bleeding.
If you
Busy
do one
bleeding.
point of party damage in Plague Stone, you have to be executed immediately, and someone else needs to take your place. You're too dangerous.
But Nick, you lose those line effect moments. Line effect moments. What is he
Like
talking
line-
When
about?
do you
A
really
line
get
of
like
effect.
when you have like a lightning bolt moment where you're like, oh, those 3 guys are in a row. This is my moment.
Has
you zap a lightning
anyone-
bolt down the line.
Just curious, and you all in the chat, please answer too. Has anyone ever hit more than 2 enemies with a lightning
About
bolt?
Yes.
3 to 4 episodes of Strange Aeons ago, they fought a druid in a cave.
Uh-huh.
One of the players went first, and the druid went second.
Uh-huh.
And the player who went first, I had the party just kind of in like the general cup formation,
Right.
just like engagement.
Yep.
The party member who went first walked up to the front of that cup to swing at her. And made the entire party, because we were down derp that day, all 4 of them in a line for her to step Zappa. It's a whole.
So the NPC got to go lightning bolt
got
the whole party.
Full party lightning bolt.
I have had multiple occasions where I have gotten to hit multiple people with line effects. Because especially with the introduction of, not Horizon Thunder Sphere, what's the other one? Inner Radiance Torrent.
Oh, the
So
worst
many
one.
people just want to sit there and Kamehameha line.
It would have been better if they didn't stick it on D4s, but yes, that's
Man.
true.
Well, it wasn't, and
Well,
then
had
it got
too
buffed.
many
Or it got
D4s.
nerfed. And it was good. It
What's
was
up,
on
Jesus? How you
D4s.
doing?
It got cut in half on purpose because it was so good.
It was a disgusting amount of damage.
It
It
was
was like a
so
typo
crazy.
disgusting amount of damage.
Yeah. I mean, well, like, you've got that wand, which is like just make lightning bolt better. The meta magic wand that's literally just make lightning bolt better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wide!
You've also got, like, as you get higher up, you have more options for stuff like that, like Massacre, which Massacre is a super cool spell. Straight line, you blast a bunch of people with damage, and if
So
no
we're
one
still,
dies, you
like,
blast yourself.
Every
It is fringe cases.
complaint is a single French case in a game with an 800-page rulebook. Is like, but this spell isn't cool anymore. I'm like, okay. But like that's
I think
So let me say this. I am very much okay with this system in cinematic boss fights with small amounts of NPCs. Like, if you are dealing with 1 or 2 big NPCs and you're like, you need to focus on this 1 or 2 people and that is all that's important, I think this system works perfectly and I think it's better. I think if we're in a situation where we have a room where terrain matters, where stuff that's going on matters, where the environment matters, where there's multiple groups
Where there's
of
6
people,
groups of 6 enemies on the board.
I think this system ain't gonna work and it's not good.
I think it'll work fine in terms of terrain if it is the room, like Mr. Beak. The room is this terrain, and it's just
that
it's
terrain.
everything
Exactly.
there.
The
It's
environment
not
doesn't
this
matter.
area of the room. It is the whole room.
Yep.
Because then it's just like, that is the state I am in. If I move, I need to make an acrobatics check. I know that. That is just the state we're in. It's all difficult terrain. Cool. I can only move half speed.
Or
We're
I'm
done.
on a rock cave floor. Everything is rock cave floor. There's stalactites everywhere. Cool. I know where I am. There's one big giant thing in the middle of the room. It's a giant bug that wants to eat me. I have a great idea of what's going on now. I
There you
don't
go.
need anything else.
There you go.
And I mean, we already, for like multi-combat, we already do typically just 1 for space on the GM screen, and 2 because it's easier for the GM.
they all basically act together.
Yeah, you put, if it's 3 dudes, you put 3 of them in on one initiative, because then you got 3.
I have never
groups.
split mooks on initiative because it's
Yeah,
just like it just
it's-
takes so
If
much
you
time.
have like 14 enemy tokens
If
on
there's
your
like
board,
a leader
stop.
and 3 goobers, that's 2 initiative.
So I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone's
Leader and
noticed
3
this,
goobers.
but I actually have never rolled initiative once for any of my NPCs in Abomination Vaults.
Well, you just take 10.
I take 10, and if there's multiple groups, one of them will take 12, and one of them will take 8, and then I'll just spread
makes
them
sense.
up, and then that's how that.
If-
I've
if-
never
if
I
rolled
haven't
it
noticed
once,
that,
and no one's
If
noticed.
you have a squad and you take 10, they're going to end up in a clump anyway
Right,
because monster
yeah.
initiatives are going to be so close together.
Yeah, but like I literally never do that.
Yeah.
How does Bless Bane and Wheel Woe work?
It's
for
more
this stream?
$1 AMA, so it's whenever
Yeah.
just hang out and talk show.
The talk shows are like,
Streams, if you $1, just drop what we're doing, look at it, and
we'll read
answer
your question.
Yes, likely beat Dreven, but Dreven might roll a 16. You never know.
So, and the other thing that I was saying, so the fight with the big machine. So one thing I was saying about that situation is that seemed like a really cool setup situation, and because we were fighting it stream of consciousness, I have no visualization for what the torture machine looked like. Like, was it huge and filling up a huge room?
So-
Well,
Was it
from having had the map, it's pretty much literally just a rectangle. It's
Yeah.
not really on the
It's-
map. There's no
it's a
detail. There's nothing you
table.
would have seen.
Right, but like it
there's
would
also
be
no
cool,
visual reference.
But what I'm saying is, for things like that, if it's a very, very cool or plot important room feature, it would be nice if we had some sort of visualization of it so that or some more detailed description
would
of
require
You're
it.
asking
things-
Paizo for art. Data.
Yeah, that would require us to have,
needing
like-
generate assets.
Yeah,
is what
that's a
is.
different. This
The
is a
only way
different problem.
we solve that is we hire a full-time artist who just does those things.
This
for
is a
us.
different problem from the map thing. Because
Yeah.
again, the map wouldn't help do that.
That's a show issue.
on that map, because I can tell you because I saw it. It is a rectangular room with a table in it.
Oh, that's it?
That's
the
all
room.
it is.
Bummer.
There's I don't know what. There's nothing on there you would have seen that would have made.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
vast majority
Suck.
of the maps in Abomination Vaults are empty rooms.
Yeah, because I mean they don't put Paizo doesn't put super high detailed map art most of the time. Every now and then they'll have because it's a map, it's a combat grid, so there's not a ton of granularity and a ton of detail. It's mostly just like the room is shaped like this
The
because
biggest
that's the thing that the map is for.
The biggest detail I can tell you on map 1, like the entirety of the first floor of Abomination Vaults that they put on the map, there's a blood pool on the map in the lighthouse.
Yep.
That is the most detailed feature of the first floor, is the blood pool in the lighthouse, which is then gone when you deal with it and does not return.
And see the
Actually,
map.
it does come back until you do
And
something
see,
else.
We did the thing.
The scene that sticks out to me the most is in Age of Ashes, the dream sequence that we ran when the dragon showed up
Oh.
in our fake thing, and we had all of the water towers, and we were running around to all of the water towers, and the dragon was in the middle. Like, that was a map that was not super granular, but there were some really interesting features, and we were very much interacting with the environment in a way that was very cool that made the map worth having.
You had like a map objective.
Yeah,
That was the thing that you needed to
and
get. And they were a sizable distance from each other. You
Yeah.
needed like 35 feet of movement to get from one tower to the next tower. There were 6 of them.
That is a map to me that mattered. But I'm not sure that every fight we're in has a map that matters unless we want to make it matter.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of maps where it's like very important, especially like the terrain difference. I mean, the Age of Ashes fight where we're in the lava cave, but the dream lava cave and like the final thing.
Strymalura?
Yeah.
No, not Strymalura.
Not Strymalura.
It's the one that we had gone into the ritual,
it's
and
when
there's
you're
that
already
crazy
in the
old wizard, and
there's
like literally bridges, and there's lava in between them,
I
and
can't
there's like
remember.
lava
It's the name of
pools.
the guy. It's the guy that used the orb.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember his
in
name
the first place.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, but
Dragon
he's-
Orb fight with 2 red dragons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like that was a very tactical map because there was a lot of terrain differences, and where you were on the bridge and where the lava was very important.
all of it mattered.
I mean, which isn't to say you couldn't theater of the mind that. Like, I firmly believe you can theater of the mind almost anything. I ran Exalted for like 10 years. Like, you can theater of the mind anything. But it's a question of how much of this fight is tactically important on the map. Exalted is a game where there is no tactical granularity in any of its abilities. It's generally assumed you can get almost anywhere. They kind of throw something in there where you can move. There's movement rules. No one uses them. You're
a god.
I walk up to the Kung Fu master and I punch him. That's how it works. But I think for Pathfinder, there's so many things that you would lose for a hyper granular fight that I definitely see it in that case.
And I do think that the map details, that is an Abomination Vault's very leaned issue, because like Zinder brings up the Celestial Menagerie, that was a really good map.
I think it's just because it's a cool theme, because they just have a lot of theming to show off. Because most maps, like, realistically are a building.
Right.
And it's the shape of a building. That was like a circus ground.
Yeah.
So it's colorful. It's got like the walls are like the pinstriped outsides of tents. There's like walkways and animal pens and stuff. And like there's just because of the theme of the map. Because if you look at what the rooms are, they are mostly, again, just rectangles or tent shaped rectangles.
But they're themed and they put the work
But
and
they're
detail into
colorful
them.
and they're interesting and they're different because they're not your average. It is a really, like, the Celestial Menagerie Grounds is a really, really cool looking map.
Even
I agree
the,
completely. But
what was Moonstone Hall was another really good map. Yeah, it's a bunch of rooms, but it's very well themed. They have portions of it that make differences.
I remember what Moonstone Hall is. I remember it just kind of being like a very generic dungeon map.
It had
I don't
like
recall it
the
having a
main
bunch of cool
entrance
stuff in it.
had like it was a big semicircle room that had like a huge doorway to it, but it was all stained glass.
Extinction
and the map
Curse
actually
is
had it.
kind of an anomaly because they went really hard on their maps because the Druid Hermitage in book 1,
the
that map
Hermitage
is
too.
crazy.
It's nuts.
They had like the final boss room in that. They described the room as like having this incredible like mosaic fresco across the floor, and it's on the map.
Huh.
Like the whole room looks like that.
Oh,
it has
wow.
the rivers of wind and
Wow.
water flowing through it. I'm like, the Extinction Curse in general, the maps were crazy.
The first
Like
first 2 books were fantastic.
They went
and
really
then,
hard on those maps.
Then
actually.
book 3 and 4 also happened.
I do think that there's also a lot of physical disciplines that do miss out when you don't have the ability to look at them yourself and come up with creative solutions. If you have to ask the GM a bunch of questions, you lose some of the drama of saying what you're about to do. So for instance, if I am an acrobatics person or if I'm a stealth person and I see a really cool advantage or really cool stunt that I can do because I've seen something in the map and the way I can move that you haven't seen yet, but I'm asking you all these questions about it because I can't see it in my head, I'm kind of revealing what I want to do to you before I've made it cool.
To me.
There is
what she wants to do to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you have that. There is the issue of like, hey GM, is there this before you describe your action, and
Which
already kind of you're
Dungeon
leading.
Speed, right, exactly at that
Yes.
moment said the same thing. I'm gonna ask the GM questions about placement, but it breaks my immersion.
Yeah. I have that issue a lot with Corwin, and specifically with Devise a Stratagem, because it's really hard for me to go, I'm going to see if I can hit them and find a way to like describe that isn't the monster now has a weak point.
Yeah, or you see an opening in their fighting style.
Yeah,
or,
but it's just like, it's either I pick something that is possibly not what the GM would want for that creature,
Yeah,
or
and
I go to the GM and go, okay, do I think I'm going to hit it with a 13, I'm going to swing and hit it, and then you tell me where my opening is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do it either way. I've never
Nick and
heard
I-
you
point.
describe something that wasn't appropriate.
Well, that's my
though.
point, is I have to sit there like between combat and like partially zone myself out to go, what can I do to this thing and how it is acting in combat to provide myself the fantasy of I have thought out this maneuver and how to make it work effectively to do more damage.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, you're doing extra precision damage. So either you're hitting a weak point, you're finding an opening in the monster or the enemy's defenses, or
you're hitting it in its third eye.
I mean, like, really, those two
Right in
things
the
are
center
where
of the
precision
chakras.
damage comes from.
What,
Yeah.
you
So,
don't,
I mean,
you don't
like,
know?
just anything along those lines, I wouldn't feel disheartened that you can only think of weak point or opening in the defense, because I think that's literally all precision
Right
damage
in the
is.
kidney hole.
But
Yeah.
it becomes the point of like, as the combat goes on, because I want to flavor them. And this comes up with the map of like, okay, cool. This thing's now standing like halfway onto a portion of the map that's got like rubble on it. So I can go, oh, it catches its foot on one of these random pebbles, slides a bit, I can find that moment and get in. If the map's a blank gray room, well, I really have to listen in for descriptions to be able to play the room into the character.
You need to watch more kung fu movies, sir.
No, Corwin does not watch Kung Fu. He stabs things with a sword.
Refuse.
I've watched Kung Fu Hustle.
Kung Fu Hustle is spectacular.
It's
Are you
fantastic.
kidding me? That's a great.
But
so many good fights in that movie, which
That's-
all are great stunting potential.
They
for a
are.
fight.
That movie was a Bollywood, like...
It really was.
Fantastic.
That movie was a
actually.
Bollywood
I-
musical that happened in China.
I'm not saying that I want to play a monk based on Kung Fu Hustle, but I definitely want to play a monk on Kung Fu Hustle.
I'm a Kung Fury enjoyer.
Kung Fury was
Kung
awesome.
Fury was
Go for
actually really
chucks.
good.
Real funny.
But I think we've gone out into left field again.
Yeah,
so
we
that's
have a
just
bit.
where we end up.
It's hard to. We end up complaining about a very specific thing. We keep narrowing. We start with like a broad. This is a problem, and then we narrow to like, well, specifically when I use this one ability on the investigator class specifically, I have a hard time. Which is, I guess, like it's an example of the previous thing, but it is again like in the weeds. I think the core of the issue, with the argument against, from the player perspective, from the just like game specific about the loss of strategy, is that like that's what Pathfinder is.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes to your turn in a combat and you're up to the plate, you get to make a couple of choices. What abilities, like strikes or spells or whatever, do you have that'll be useful, and how and where can you use them effectively? And this is functionally removing half of that.
Yes.
So it's, I think, very, very likely to quickly feel like you're just doing like a World of Warcraft rotation, where like you're a melee character, I walk up to them and strike, which when there's no specificity as to how walking up to them would happen or where you're going to go or how that's going to look, your turn's going to be like, am I in range of them? No, then I go to range of them and then I hit them. Because you kind of remove like you can say individual things like this spell AoE, we lose this, or this specific thing of flanking, we lose that, or this cover thing, we lose that. And those are like all individual points that you're like, yeah, but that's one thing. But the entirety of Pathfinder combat and what makes it interesting is all of those things happening together. Because everybody is doing those things, and everybody has some interface with that, however minimal, that gives them, even if they don't make a ton of choices, the option to make choices. Whereas without any kind of a map in which just kind of like you're in melee or you aren't, your choice is like, do you want to be in melee? Like, would you like to spend one action toggling the melee on or off and then do your rotation?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's because you guys don't have jars. I think if you realized what kind of utility jars had, I really think you could come up with
They have the
more
utility
options.
of burning through all our supply.
But those are really special jars. I have
They're
to
not.
say.
They broke when they hit the ground.
Well, I
They're
mean,
I'm
that's-
pretty sure they're just regular jars.
Yeah.
They might just be regular jars. You're not high enough level to get super jars yet. That's coming. But I mean, it's I think also a good point of, and I don't think this is something that's intrinsic to maps. I think it's something that's intrinsic to good maps, is informing the environment to give players cues as to what is there. Because in a theater of the mind situation, you can literally just like, the strength of the theater of the mind is if the players are willing to do it and the GM trusts the players to do it, the players can literally just make shit up. Right.
Right.
The player,
What I do.
Corwin can literally just say, I'm gonna push the enemy onto a bit of unstable ground, and throw him off balance to get an opening, right? Was that piece of ground unstable to begin with? I don't know. I didn't describe it, but sure, it's cool. I'll let it happen, right?
It's something we talked about actually in our like session zeros for early Strange Aeons, is especially because they start with nothing, no gear, no weapons even. And I'm just like, you're in a hospital. I'm going to describe the general state of a room. You can absolutely just pull stuff out. Like you can add things to this scene. You can't pull out a +3 major striking vorpal longsword, but you can grab like a piece of pipe that broke out of the wall, or a rock, or a table leg. Like you can just, that's there, sure. Like we're in a ruined hospital. Like,
yeah. Like as long as it makes sense, I don't think it's necessarily like, I think it's great to let players invent things that make sense. I mean, if you're in a cage match with a little tiny bird puppet, if you want to pull a steel chair out from somewhere and whack the bird, I mean, sure, it's a broken down workshop. You'll find something that'll work.
It does rely partially on player creativity, though.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, naturally.
You could fall into the trap of, I have a swashbuckler in the party? Cool. Every room that I now run as a GM probably has a chandelier in it. At some point in the fight, there's probably a chandelier in this room now. Because they want to dive off the chandelier and stab someone.
I mean,
What?
I'm
gonna level with you. I do not understand.
like, are you saying that the swashbuckler player will narrate a chandelier in the room literally every single time?
The GM will
The
say, well,
potential
this
of it.
warehouse probably doesn't have a chandelier in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what'll happen
Unless
is
it becomes
after
a running joke
after the
meme.
4th time, I think all the players are going to look at him and say, "Come on, man!" Like, I mean, that's cooperative storytelling, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, chandeliers don't show up on maps anyway, right?
Sometimes they do.
Okay, fair enough.
I can think of 3 maps we've run that have one on it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I guess I am also playing a weird character in this game to come into this conversation with, because my character's entire thing is I literally make shit up and it's real. Like literally, I narrate the existence of your weakness into existence, and because I am a thaumaturge, if I succeed on my roll, it just works. So it does make it a little bit easier for my
Gets
character.
a lot of leeway to just do
Because
things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just doing shit anyway. It's like, no.
PG-13.
Sorry. Didn't mean to. Yeah, we're gonna move on. But anyway, it does put a lot of the onus on the player. It does take a lot of the power away from the GM to make those calls. But I'm also a really big believer in sharing the narrative power between player and GM, and that dynamic should shift depending on the situation you're in. Like, there's situations where the narrator is going to have all of the narrative power, but there's also situations where the player is going to take all of that power away, and he should, because he just did something
Cooperative
amazing.
storytelling.
Every
Because
time
that's what cooperative
we pick up this
storytelling
dice
is.
and roll a 20.
there you go. I mean, there's also that. That's basically what Roll20 is. Roll20 is you get to
You
just-
get to, you
get to write
tell
the
me
story
what
for a little
happens,
bit.
man.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
How hard do you stab Reese?
And so, I mean, like, I think really at the end of the day, a lot of this, no solutions, only trade-offs, right? This
Right,
all comes
right,
down
exactly.
to, like, what's the personal preference of your group? What are you also at home? What are you
What do you
happy
wanna
with?
do?
How do you like to roll?
we had one little sample episode with it. What did you think about it?
Yeah, exactly. And kind of thoughts on how to do things like that. As far as I think I like it, I definitely see the limitations. I like talking about it too.
Trialing it more is the only way to really
Yeah.
test it.
I think
So-
we can test it with some other fights.
Absolutely think it has a place. Like, I
think-
mean, I've already used it several times on things. Like, I definitely think there's space for it.
We could definitely keep testing in Abomination Vaults, but you know what else would be a pretty good one for?
What?
Tomb of Annihilation style. Or what was it, Rapanathuk? Just,
Why did you have to
just
bring
send
that up?
people in.
And
it doesn't matter if they die in the combat because they can just keep going in the meat
So I
grinder. of
want you to
Theater of
picture
the Mind
your
combat.
character dying.
Picture the spiky boulder that is rolling towards you unavoidably. I mean, you can roll a reflex save. The DC is like 50. So if it'll make you feel better to roll it, go for it, man.
And I definitely think on shows where we don't have a showrunner, for some reason the showrunner gets sick, we now have...
If we don't have a showrunner, there's
Worst
no way to
case
do that.
scenario, it's not impossible.
It's not
to run an
impossible.
episode without a
It
showrunner.
does take away a lot
It
because
takes
that
away
it
a
takes
lot.
away our sound sets, but does help with immersion.
I don't
Music
think we run.
breaks.
I wouldn't want to do it on the regular, but if it was an emergency, we now have a way to run a combat without it.
That's
It
true.
works very well for stuff where we know we're going to be in one location for like the first half of stream. and we
Our
can set
showrunner
everything
gets
up.
very rapid onset diarrhea
Yeah.
halfway through a show.
It makes it
move to the theater of the mind.
yeah, because we can talk
And
like
ignore the sounds.
yes. So we
from our
know
bathroom,
Because, yeah,
this does also-
wow,
which
thanks.
is right there.
Please, why'd you have
do
to bring
want to
that up?
get-
Because now I'm thinking about it.
the
Cow.
no
Think
show.
about
Cow.
the cow.
Cow.
Thank God I
I'm
had
trying
a
to keep
visual
them on
mind.
track, chat. I'm trying. Like,
Cow, it's fit.
The
Ooh.
not having a showrunner, it's definitely doable. It does need to be planned for, because we either have to
Well,
build this out,
I spent like 20 minutes of frantic clipping up
frantic
stickers.
clipping. It
if
could have
we have,
been
if you
much
have the
better.
clothespins, I think we're pretty much good to go.
But if we did it as like, we know we're not going to have a showrunner for example of whatever we're doing next week. Okay, we start with the second floor sound set.
I'm sorry.
And we go through
I'm
music.
I'm stuck in the pulse monitor.
And
We're
then-
not getting on track. I'm sorry. We're going to
And
derail
then-
you every second we get.
We know we're going into a fight the second half. We go in after break with all the sound sets and stuff to the fight. And then the only thing that we would really need is transition to swap everything.
You are assuming, of course, that we're still going into that fight after the players decide to go and activate their cat brains.
Yeah.
It's like, no plan
All I'm
survives
saying-
contact with the
All
players.
I'm saying is we are, in fact, all cats on leashes. It's your choice if you just let the leash go.
You don't understand how a cat on a leash works, good sir. The cats operate in 3 dimensions. Dogs are
So do
like
people.
Are no? Yeah, it's like,
We operate in 3 dimensions. Cats operate in 5.
well, I mean, possibly, but people rarely understand. Cat on a leash is not nearly as contained as you think it is. That's the issue.
All you have set is a maximum limit to how far away from you we can get, probably.
Probably.
That's all you have done. I remember we tried really hard to, this is a complete, we're gone.
Yeah.
We tried, when we had our rants, we got a little vest for him. I tried to put,
I remember the
because
video.
he wanted to go on an adventure, man. He wanted to run around and do rat stuff. So we got him a little vest and a leash.
Oh,
So
I
just
remember.
so he could just like run around the living room, and I had to worry about him like climbing up in the couch or anything because I have a leash. He would not wear that. Rats are like, what are those little toys that are just kind of like the tubes of like the glitter gel that just sprue through your hand? That's what a rat is made of. So you
That's
put the
what
vest
your
on him,
rat was
and he's
made
just
out
like,
of.
no. He's not in the vest anymore. Mostly because he was potato shaped and didn't have legs. So maybe it would have worked if he was less fat. But you know,
So
such
he
is life.
also didn't understand what friction was.
And
And
a
that
Rats
is why
typically do not.
And that's
Watching
why he
him
was
try
able to ignore
Friction,
it.
gravity, all foreign concepts.
Look, Derp, you already won. We're not getting rid of maps.
to make
Because
Derp happy,
he
do we
pleases.
want me to read his manifesto?
I mean, if there's anything he hasn't already said,
Yeah,
We've,
is there anything we haven't
we've
covered?
covered pretty much all of it.
well, is there? What about the stuff that wasn't pretty much covered?
I mean, I'd have
Anything in there
like,
about
reading through
communism?
this.
Unfortunately, you will. This does involve you reading
I
his
feel like we did it
manifesto.
relatively
It is going
thoroughly,
into
so
pretty
I'm
much
curious-
everything we've
I am
done.
curious what he has that we didn't talk about because I thought it was pretty comprehensive.
I think we've covered pretty much everything in here. Like I'm reading through it again, and I, beyond just like going into further specificity of things, it's all like enjoys war games aspects and rules on movement, positioning, spacing are all pertinent for full use of character and abilities. Certain feats are rendered obsolete. We've already went over
This is
that.
the stuff we've covered.
Yeah, we covered
Fear of the
love
mind,
Borgo.
AoE and line spells, yada yada. Reach weapons, we went over. Generally, I would be fine with Theater of the Mind for a less rule-specific system, but Pathfinder, because it detracts from the experience of having 0 battle maps, which he can plan and position himself on.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
we
so
went over
that's
all
the
this.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's. I feel like the pros and cons of the system are relatively apparent. Pretty much immediately on attempting to run it. At the very least, you immediately realize like what you do and do not have now, and what does and does not matter. I think we've gone through it pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know that there's much else other than just kind of looping on what we already said.
I
we
don't
could
know.
cover. So it's really just the big question is it worth it? And how often or how much of it being a regular mainstay is worth
More
it.
testing.
And that's the thing we got to figure out. Like, that's the thing we got to feel out as we go.
Yeah. I kind of thinking about it and kind of going around thinking about what we talked about. I'm probably thinking that if I don't have just a single enemy, I'm probably not even going to try, because I would literally have to redefine rules for people to understand how to interact with everything.
Yeah,
Does this mean I should go back and take Fleet?
You can if you want to.
You'd be basically just like reboxing Pathfinder entirely.
Yeah, I mean,
to deal with a different situation.
Yeah, it's essentially we're into such extreme house rule territory, and it wouldn't be difficult. I'd only have to come up with like probably 3 or 4 new rules to make it all work. But you're still taking a big chunk of the war game and just changing it entirely. It's no longer like Pathfinder, but we're just kind of abstracting it.
Don't worry, we'll kickstart our own rule system in 20XX.
20XDX.
It's Pathfinder, but there's not a map.
No, it's Pathfinder. There's no T.
It's Mapfinder.
I already have
You gotta find the map.
I already have my controversial Pathfinder rewrite. That's I think I've talked about this before. The GM never rolls system.
I'm moving that way. Well, what is it?
It's literally just taking the concept of like things having a DC, which is a thing plus 10, and literally applying it to everything. So like enemies never make a spell attack roll against you. You roll a saving throw. Enemies do not attack you. You make an AC save. It's literally players only roll.
Totally
I don't
doable.
see any reason to roll behind. I mean, it's just other than the way that it's always done. I'm rolling behind a screen. Nobody sees it. Like the players are supposed to the ones that are supposed to be having the dice, telling all the story, especially with our blesses and banes and stuff. I don't think the GM ever needs to roll dice. I think the taking 10 on initiative or the 12 and 8 thing is a great idea. I should just 100% be on them. If they need to make a save, you roll your spell against their reflex DC or their fort DC or their will DC or whatever. That's my controversial Pathfinder take. There's no reason the GM we invented the entire system of DCs. There's no reason for the GM to be rolling dice anymore.
Counterpoint. I like when the math rock go click clack in my hand.
Well, you can still play with them.
Also,
Yeah, but then it's
you
distracting.
have a die that wants to kill us.
I've been playing with this the entire time. You're gonna be distracted. Like it's just like that's.
We don't talk about the Pathfinder die that's back there that rolls only above an 18.
That die wants to kill us, and if you don't ever roll it, it will never make its dream
You have the
come true.
Malachite. You've already got dice that do things.
The Starfinder.
That thing doesn't touch me. That thing doesn't need to exist in my universe.
The dice I got for Corey for Starfinder from the candle,
Right.
Sully rolled those almost exclusively for every boss fight in Malevolence. Those are the dice that want to kill specifically the Malevolence party.
Okay. I think the dice that want to kill the Malevolence party are all of the dice that we roll.
Mostly these ones.
Literally all of our dice.
Mostly these ones that only have this number on them.
There's only ones on those D6s, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
How that works. All right, well, I mean,
Okey-dokey.
I think we've gone over it. I think we've got some great feedback, great discussion, both from Derp's manifesto and frequent posts, as well as all of the chat. In fact, everyone kind of posted up some pretty cool stuff.
Thanks, Bones.
He did roll the Malachite before stream. He
I
rolled
got
a
a
3.
3.
So you're now going to
You're
have all of
charged.
his RNG.
You ready for skeletons?
Yeah. Spoiler alert, it's the skeletons in the room that were bursting through the door when we ended stream.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. A clump of skeletons.
There's a clump of skeletons.
More skeletons.
TM.
And weird inflating ooze
But
things.
I think before we just derail further into whatever the hell is slowly happening to this show,
Isn't
I'm
TM a
hungry.
thing that you
Wait,
get
we
with
gotta end it
Pokemon?
appropriately. I'm hungry.
probably a good line for this one, and it do be dinner time.
It do
for
be
me
dinner
as well.
time.
Food
Yeah,
be
it's
good.
true.
It's
I
too
am
dark
here.
Thanks for
outside to
coming,
eat.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. We are curious about your thoughts. We have our Discord. The link should be right below the channel down there, or our Twitter, X, whatever as well. Probably the 2 easiest places that you can reach out. Because I want to know what you guys think from a viewer side as well.
Yeah.
I can't talk from a viewer side. I can for Abomination Vaults, but like that one episode we tried it, I was over there. So kind of a pseudo viewer, I guess, doing things. But I'm also only one brain, and we're only 4 brains. Derp 4.5. So
Borbo, 4.8.
No, he takes the scale down.
back to 4. So
he has
the
no
more-
brain.
it's a thing we're trying. It's a thing we're playing with. It's an idea Nick had that does seem like it definitely has some merit, from
Certainly.
especially for a show perspective.
Certainly wasn't cooked up in desperation. But
Don't worry about it. It was all planned and went exactly as we wanted it
yeah,
to.
we
We'll
plan
be
everything, including our internet outages.
Back here Saturday should be our next show for a new episode of Strange Aeons starting at 3 p.m. Eastern with the Clump of Skeletons TM. If you want to see how that one shakes out, rattles out, perhaps more appropriate, come join us. And maybe I don't know if you're planning on trialing any more of this no map adventure on Abomination Vaults on Sunday, but I mean, that shows, either way, that show's there too with all of these people on
It
it.
is.
And more to come soon.
Fishy.
So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your nights. See you guys
Guess
later.
I should get up. Also, don't forget the cow.
And
Cow?
we shan't forget it in our brains.
It's in my head now.
Until Curly Fries.
The
I
cow
forget
is
those.
still spinning.
Oh, I forgot he was spinning.